Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Car Show and Tell. I am your humble host and Toolman, and we are not in the no-kill car shelter today. We are no-kill car shelter adjacent. But nevertheless, we're back again, and we're going to do a few more updates to Project Plastique, our 87 C4 Corvette. We're going to do a little suspension upgrading this time around. So why don't I show you what we got? I come back here to the crate, and that's upside down. We have the old VBP Sport Spring. It's supposed to be around a 600 pound per inch rate. It's no longer VBP. I believe that stuff's now getting made by Van Steel. I think they bought the molds and product line, and they're making that. We also got some upgraded sway bars. I don't remember who they're from at the moment because I bought this stuff a while ago, and now that escapes me as to who made them or the rates. I'll look that up and I'll make sure that I let you in on that just as soon as I remember what the hell I'm doing. And as soon as I get these out of the way and move the rest of my mess, we'll get our crate open. We've got a bag of goodies here underneath some tools. There we are. Okay, got some QA1 Carrera tuned, I guess, shocks for it, and we're gonna do a Prothane kit for the car, and some new U-joints while I'm at it. And I threw a couple other things in here if I got the time for them. So we're going to do the front, we're going to do the rear. Yeah. So without any further ado, I guess let's get started. Hey, enough. I did a bunch of brake videos a while back, if you might remember, when I upgraded to larger 13-inch brakes in the front, and I had to make some changes to get them to fit, and I just wanted to reiterate that yeah, those fit, and they've been working well since. So let me get this wheel off here, and then we'll pick up from there. Okay, so first part of the video, what we're going to focus on here is getting the front brakes, front suspension disassembled, get the A-arms off, and maybe the front spring if we have the time. So give me a moment, we'll get to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is get our brake caliper out of the way and hang it up. Okay. And yours are probably different than these. These are aftermarket. Well, we're going to take this caliper off, and we're going to take our mount bracket off too. Okay? Huh? Okay, well, their caliper that's out of the way and hung. I'll take our rotor off, and we can get to our caliper bracket bolts here and here, and we'll get those off. Okay, calipers off, out of the way, rotor's out, brackets off. when I had this thing apart, or I should say, when I had this thing up in the air, I got it up in the air and I wiggled the tire to see if there was any play in the wheel bearings. And I don't know if you can hear that, but yeah, there's play in the wheel bearings. And you guys might remember the video from a couple of years back when I put these on, and well, they've already exceeded their useful life. And these are stock C4 wheel bearings. I thought I would see how long they last before I decided to do something of an upgrade. And well, there you have it. About 2 years worth of autocross, and they got play. And I kind of figured they did because I was getting a little bit of pad knockback when I was in the car. I would notice that the pedal kind of sunk a little bit before I actually got into the brakes. So I kind of figured that was the case, and it is. So we've got some upgrades in the pipeline for this when we put it back together. So stay tuned and you'll learn all about that. But for now, we're going to get this bad bearing out of the way. It's 4 bolts, and you can see how it works. 2 bolts up at the top, 2 bolts down at the bottom. But on the back side here, what we've got to worry about is getting our ABS sensor signal wire out of this little aluminum bracket. Once that's out of there, then there's 2 speed nuts, 15mm on the back of this. This will come off. We can set it aside, and then there's 4 nuts here, 2 on the other side, 4 15mm nuts. We take those off, and then we can pull the bolts and the hub all in one, because you can't really get the bolts out individually as you remove them. You got to take the whole hub out and then fish the bolts out. Okay, so we're going to work on that, and then I will pick back up in a moment or so. There's our speed nuts and our ABS sensor signal wire bracket, and then we'll take our regular nuts off. Okay, bolts are out. Off that comes, and then you're going to line up this hole with a bolt and take it out of there, like so. And I can see behind here there was some grease coming out of these bearings. These were Timkins. I think they were Timkins, and thought they were good bearings, but they were also made in China. So there you have it. Again, made in China. And our O-ring stuck here. It's a good thing, because it's probably all that was keeping the grease from coming out of that bearing. So we're just gonna hang on to that. Why not? Set that off to the side. The next thing I want to do is take this ABS sensor out. Okay, it's just 2 7mm hex screws here. So we're going to loosen these. Oh, hey there. It shouldn't take too long, so I'll just do it on camera. Come on. Oh. And these are pretty robust sensors, so I wouldn't go taking a pry tool or anything to it if you don't want to break it, but usually these will just wiggle right out of here, just like so. And then I'm going to set this off to the side and hang it from the same place that we hung our brake caliper. And I always like to retain my screws in their original holes so I don't get them mixed up. And that's that. Alright, so here we are. We're going to work on getting our tie rod off here. I've taken the cotter pin out, and then it's an 18mm socket. Throw me that PB blaster. And I should have hit this up a minute ago, but I didn't. I always try to use a little bit of that. And that makes quick work of it. And then I found the easiest thing to do to try to sneak this nut out of here. Give me a moment. Is I like to remove the washer, take my castle nut and run it on upside down until it's flush with the top of my outer tie rod stud here. About like yay, because I want to reuse this. And give it some sharp taps. There we go. Until it's worked loose, then we can take our castle nut back off. And our tie rod comes right out, and hopefully our castle nut goes right back on without any issues, which it does. Brilliant! And then I know you gotta reuse. You gotta use a new cotter pin when you put that back together. Okay? Okay, the next order of business is getting the sway bar disconnected. 15 millimeter. We'll take the nut, 15 millimeter wrench on the back side to back it up. And then we can tap our bolt off. Okay, that's that. Alright, we're going to work on our ball joint nuts here. There's a 21 millimeter on the bottom, an 18 millimeter on the top. There we go. That one broke loose. I've already got the cotter pins out, so don't forget that part. Oh, wrong way. Yeah, I'm going to turn this the other way. And there we go. That one's loose. I love clean cars that aren't full of corrosion because they tend to come apart nice and easy. Like this one. And again, I'm going to turn this around, run it down. I do have new ball joints, so I'm not too concerned with preserving the threads on these two, but I'm still going to do what I do. Turn the nuts over and run them flush. Okay. And I do have a jack up under my control arm. Not that I really need to have it there. And I really should probably take these bolts out of the shock first. That's a 15, I think. That's a 15. No, it's not a 15. 13 perhaps. Let's see. Try a 14. Yep, 13. So I'll pause, take those bolts out, and I'm just going to let this jack down just a little bit lower than the control arm naturally falls. Alright, I lied. I left those bolts in. So I didn't want this going down too far and having the leaf spring get against this aluminum piece down here. So I'm gonna just do my best to smack the top of this ball joint until it shocks loose. There we go. Once you see the nut drop and hit the control arm, you're good. Or the nut drop and hit the spindle, you're good. And I did beat it up just a little bit. And you can see the control arm falling as I loosen this. There we go. Next. Hold on a second. Okay. Whoops. Okay. The jack's still under the control arm now. I can take these shock bolts out. And then we can lower the control arm till it rests. The spring rests against this aluminum piece connected to the front cross member. Okay, with our bottom shock bolts out, we see our control arms dropped a little bit further. And we can swing this around here and get a swing. Well, we can turn that around there and we can get a swing at this top nut. And I should have taken this washer off, but I didn't. So, let me drop that now. Put this on here flush. I can swing at that, and it should pop loose. If I don't hit the aluminum, for crying out damn loud. There we go. It popped loose. Take my nut back off, and our left hand spindle comes off. Okay, washer nut back on. Come on, just so I don't lose them. And there we go. Alright, we're at the top of the shock absorber here, and there's a small flat at the top of the shock that you can usually hold with just a small adjustable wrench and then a 15 mil box wrench on the nut, and that should come off like so. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of tough. I think my adjustable is slipping. So the other option is to take this plastic panel out of the way and then just take an impact and zip it off. So I think we're just going to try that. If you want to get this plastic panel out, we got 10 mil fasteners here, 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 here. And then on the inside, there are 2 more down here on either side of this hump right here. At the bottom, there's a 10 mil and a 10 mil on either side of it. And at the front, right in front of your control arm, you've got a 10 mil with a wide washer right there. So other than that, it's just kind of, you got to get some of this wiring out of the way, and you can peel this weather strip up and out of the way, and it should come right up. So we're going to take all those fasteners out. Okay, we got our plastic panel out of the way, and we actually had to take and remove one of those panel bolts, is this one, into the hood latch bracket on the bottom, and it sandwiches that plastic panel. So with that fastener out, I had somebody else hold the hood up and took this fastener out, and then once this lower bracket was out of the way, I could wiggle that plastic panel up and out of here after I disconnected these wiring harness clips. And now, hopefully, try to take this thing up and off of here. A little bit of extra thinking. Alright, well, with that plastic panel out of the way, I was actually able to get this small adjustable on here a bit better, a bit tighter, and then broke this fastener loose with the 15 mil. So that's coming apart. And to be fair, they are probably the most corroded fasteners in the car, so it's no wonder that they gave me the most trouble. So be back with you when that's off. Okay, our shock is out of the way. Now the next thing that I want to do is get this aluminum piece that's attached to the front cross member. It's got a bolt here, a bolt here, and then two underneath that you might not be able to see, but one where my fingers are tapping, and then another one you can feel it down in here, and you've got to get to it from up underneath here. Okay, so two on the bottom, two up here, and I think they're 15 mil. If I can confirm that in a second. Nope, they're 13s. So let's get the 13 off. And the reason we've got to take that piece off is because the spring will hit it. Oops. The spring will hit it when we lower the jack. And obviously, if we want to get our spring out later, we're going to have that out of the way. And a ratchet. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm going to take these two bolts off the bottom and then take that out. Okay, we got that piece off. Now we can let our jack down, and that should put our control arm and our spring at full droop and out of tension, so we can take our control arm bolts out without killing ourselves. Yay! Okay, and yeah, go ahead. Get that out of the way. And we're going to work on our upper control arm first. We're going to take these two nuts off here and here. And keep in mind that they are captured. There's like a mushroom head on the back side, and it's ovular. And it's captured in an ovular hole. So if this bolt begins to moving backwards through that hole, it's going to come unlocked, and your nut's just going to spin. So try to keep a hand back here to keep that nut from working its way off. Or sorry, that bolt from working its way out. Okay. And on this side, there should be plenty of room. We've got a little bit of a clearance issue with our header, but usually we can just turn that bolt, you know, 90 degrees or so, and sneak the head past our exhaust manifold, not header. And then on this side, we don't really have much in the way. We've got a power steering pump pulley here, but I think there's going to be enough room to get that bolt out, and or we could always maybe turn it at an angle and get it out this way. So on the opposite side, there's a little bit more of a fitment concern trying to remove that forward upper control arm bolt. And on this side, what we're going to have to do and what you're going to have to do is come down here, at least on an L98 car, there's a serpentine belt tensioner that used to reside right here, and it was in the way. It would not allow, we could not get that bolt out past it, because here's where our bolt goes through, right here. You can see my finger right there, and then directly past it, right down there, is where our tensioner mounts. So when you get into this and start removing these, you're gonna have to take the tension off the belt, remove the tensioner, and then that bolt should come out of there for you on an L98 car. On an LT1 car or an LT5 car, good luck. I don't know.
Try to fit it.
Let's see if I can't get this in here. Whoops. All right. Here we go. She's a smoking. Whoops. Smacking my phone. Oops. Come on. Sneak past it there. There we go. That one came off a little better. Okay. Now, let's see. We can wiggle these out. I think it's probably easier to get the rear one out first. Okay. There we go. Pull that forward off the bolt. Take this. Take the front and the rear spacer. Those conical spacers. Take those both off the bolt. Then you should be able to turn it. There we go. We get it out of the hole. One. And oops. Dropping everything. I got room. It just hits the pulley. So let me take this spacer off here. And barely. Just gets past the pulley and it's out. So there we go. We got room on this side without having to remove anything. Yay. There's both of those.
He said both.
Both of them. And we'll lift our wiring out of the way. And we got our control arm right out. We'll set this off the side for further disassembly in a later video. Probably the next one. Maybe. If I get the spring out today. If I don't, then spring removal will be the next video. Now, we want to pick up all of our nuts, conical washers, those funny conical locating washers that hold the control arm where it's supposed to be, that cross shaft, and you should have 4 of them. Whoops. God damn, it's rolling away. Come here. That nut's still hot. Okay. And you should have 4 of those. 3 thin and 1 thick, right? 2 thin ones going on the outside, and a thin one and a thick one going the inside. Thick one in front, thin one in rear when we put that back together. Okay. So I'm going to place my conical washers over my control arm bolts so I don't lose them. Or if I do lose them, I'll just lose everything at once. And get those set off to the side. And we'll work on our bottom. Okay. We're working on the lower control arm bolts. The bolts pass through from the outside in. So from the front in and back here from the rear in. The nuts are 18 millimeter. The bolts are 15 millimeter. And I just put a ratchet on the 18 mil nut and then work it loose with a breaker bar on the front, and then you can just take a wrench and work it out. And the same thing works back here on the back side. Alright, now you might not think that there's enough room to get those bolts out with this in place or with that in place, but there is, barely. If you take a piece of pipe like an old jack handle or something, and essentially you hook the head of that bolt and you hammer the other end with a small claw hammer, it will eventually come out. And then there you go. Out comes your control arm. We will set that one off to the side for further disassembly and bushing removal and replacement later on. Right now, I'm going to crawl up under here and figure out how to get this spring out.
You're dead.
Okay, we're up underneath the car here, and we're going to take this coil spring out. Or coil spring, yes. It's a coil spring now. This big leafy thing, because I'm an idiot. It's a coil spring. We're going to take this leaf spring out of the front end. And we're going to come up underneath this cross member where it mounts, and there's two nuts, one here, one where my thumb's going, right up there. 15 millimeter, okay, on both sides of this cross member, here and here and here, okay. And you got to get a wrench on top of that because it's a through bolt with a nut on the bottom. So 15 combo wrench on top to hold your bolt from spinning, and then we're going to zip those nuts off with an impact and drop this rubber wedge and everything out, and hopefully this spring should just slide through the front cross member and out. Okay, now chances are if you want to get this spring out of here, you're going to have to jack the front of the car up a little higher because I didn't have enough room. My spring hit the ground before it came out of here. Just pick the other end of the spring up a little bit. Nope, still not enough room. Have to jack it up a little higher. Okay, there you have it. Got this thing jacked up high enough to wiggle that big arched front spring out. It looks as if the newer one should go in a little more easily, since it only seems to have about half the arc that the new one, or the old one, does. And we can also see, well, the thickness in the center of this spring as compared to the original. And this was a, this is HMP code, so I'll have to see what spring rate that was and compare it to the new one. But I'm kind of wondering, since this one is thicker in the center and it thins towards the outside edges, if it's not a variable rate spring. So yeah, I'll have to read up on it, like I should have done before I paid for it. So that's where we're at for now. We'll pick it up here with the sway bar. Alright, the next order of disassembly here is we're going to remove this sway bar. That's the last part of the front suspension that we've got on the car. And you can see under here, if I can get it in the camera, how that's mounted. Whoa. 2 bolts above and below the sway bar on both sides, and there appears to be enough clearance that we can wiggle this thing out of here once it's unbolted. So we'll take these bolts out and pull it out. Okay, so It helps if you remove these steel sway bar mounts. You can leave the bushings on the bar, but you can wiggle it out of there if you tap these off with a hammer and they're kind of stuck to the rubber, but it makes it easier. Well, that about wraps up this video. That's it for the disassembly and removal of the front suspension, front brakes, bearings, and all that. It's all off the car. And as much as everything's off the car that I want off the car, that I need off the car. So, stay tuned for the next video. We're gonna probably get these arms, those control arms, uppers and lowers, start to get those disassembled, get the new ball joints in them, get the new bushings in them. So I'll show you how all that works out. And that's about it for now. We'll wrap this up. I'm Tim Toolman. Thanks for tuning in, Car Show and Tell. Hope you learned something, what to do, or maybe what not to do. All right. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.